Today on Soft Eller Tech Briefs, we're looking at how to hire an offshore dedicated development team, what the model is, when it makes sense, where to find talent, and how to run the hiring process from start to finish. Whether you're a business leader, tech founder, project manager, or entrepreneur looking to streamline operations or accelerate growth by sourcing talent from offshore territories, this is a model worth understanding in detail. We'll cover what dedicated offshore teams are all about, the benefits and downsides of offshore development, use cases where this approach fits best, places and regions to find offshore developers, and the steps you can take to hire your own offshore dedicated team. The ongoing trends in tech employment. According to projections from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, employment in the tech industry is expected to grow at twice the rate of employment in the entire labor market over the next 10 years. That underlines the value of tech expertise and the growing need for tech talent across every sector of the modern economy. The growing demand only means one thing: qualified and competent IT professionals are getting harder to find and retain. In response to these talent shortages, many companies have had to reassess their talent acquisition and management approach to consider other methods of employment. One model that is gaining traction is the offshore dedicated team model. Offshore dedicated development teams have proven a great source of reprieve for companies who desire flexible, efficient, and low-cost digital transformations, but face constraints like local talent shortages or high salary expectations in their home territories. Remote software development teams enable global collaboration and round-the-clock productivity, a combination that many organizations now treat as a strategic advantage rather than a workaround. What is an offshore software dedicated team? An offshore software dedicated team refers to a group of highly skilled individuals from another country, usually some faraway location, who only work on software development projects for one company. The team acts as an arm of the in-house department and offers all the technical guidance and resources required to complete projects successfully according to their design. When you hire an offshore dedicated development team, you are essentially enlisting the diverse skill sets of IT professionals: software developers, project managers, business analysts, UI/UX designers, and QA testers from different corners of the world to work as a cohesive crew on your software project. Benefits of hiring offshore dedicated teams. Let's walk through the main advantages. Faster kickoff and project delivery. An offshore dedicated development team gives you the impetus to start and finish your software development projects quickly. In traditional hiring models, you go through lengthy recruitment and onboarding phases that could take several months just to get your project operational. With an offshore team, you don't have to wait that long. A dedicated offshore team provider of good repute can help you assemble a working team and get your project up and running within a week or two. This speedy method of conducting operations favors businesses looking to accelerate development and bring their product to market faster. Save time and effort. Building a project from the ground up in-house is a time and resource-intensive process that can take its toll on your business, especially if the project is complex. However, when you outsource to a dedicated offshore development team, you can save significant time and effort because the team comes fully formed and has a proven track record of completing projects of a similar scale. This takes some of the burden of administrative management off your internal teams so they can focus that energy on pursuing core business objectives. More flexibility. Offshore dedicated teams are inherently flexible. That's kind of the basic premise behind the entire model. They allow you the freedom to scale your development efforts based on fluctuating project needs. The flexibility provided by these teams doesn't just stop at the project level, it also extends to the number of offshore dedicated developers you can bring to work for you. You can choose the composition of technical experts you need, reassigning and adjusting the team as necessary without having to worry about long-term salary commitments or legal issues. Round-the-clock development. Because they work remotely and often in areas with different time zones from the development company, offshore team members give your project an air of continuity you barely find in another model. For instance, an offshore team in a separate time zone can work on your app during the wee hours when your in-house teams are resting, and your team leads can assess the development progress and offer feedback once they become active the next day. Such continuous and uninterrupted workflow serves two purposes. It allows issues to be identified and resolved quicker and speeds up the development process, allowing you to implement updates and features without a break in communication. Global talent acquisition. Going the offshore route of employment means you open the door to a vast pool of global talent that you may not be able to find in your region. When you expand your search for tech specializations beyond borders, you are unhindered by certain practicalities like local industry regulations and hiring policies that can prove bottlenecks to your project development. The outcome is you get to find the exact caliber of talent you deem fit for your project so it can benefit from inputs from the best possible minds. Lower wage bill. You can pay a significantly lower wage bill for the same working hours and infrastructure depending on your location and the offshore territory you choose to hire from. Suppose your business is incorporated in countries with high living costs, like the USA or Australia. In that case, hiring local talent can be more expensive than if you were to hire offshore dedicated developers from, say, Eastern Europe or China. Notably, a lower wage bill doesn't mean lower caliber talent or lower quality results. In an increasingly globalized world, offshore remote team members are often certified by the same organizations that certify onshore teams. Deeper project understanding. Because offshore dedicated development teams are deeply ingrained with your project from the start. They pay more attention to understanding the pain points of your business and what you intend to achieve with your application. Compared to the level of commitment you get with freelancers or short-term subcontractors, this complete immersion into your vision cultivates a sense of ownership and accountability among offshore developers that drives them to contribute more to the project by way of suggesting improvements or committing personal resources. Confidence in product quality. An offshore development team includes every personnel needed to bring a working product to life. This means the team works as a holistic unit, constantly testing newly developed features before integrating them into any stage of production. The strong emphasis placed on quality assurance by developers in this model ensures that whatever end product comes out of the development process is not only of high quality, but also performs responsively and reliably across platforms. Disadvantages of offshore software development. Of course, offshore development is not without its challenges. Time zone differences. In offshore development, it can be difficult to deal with the problems caused by different time zones. Correspondence may often become asynchronous, and responses could take longer than expected. Even though it is great for business that development happens throughout the day, coordinating with individuals in disparate regions requires one to be very cautious. There will sometimes be occasional delays in response or decision-making due to this, but their impact on the overall progress must be minimized through proper bridging strategies that guarantee continuity of work even when those involved are miles apart. Lack of in-person communication. A lack of face-to-face interaction can subtly affect how well people work together during an offshore collaboration. Video calls and messaging platforms do well to fill this gap, but they can't capture every nuance of in-person discussions. When there are no nonverbal cues to go by, misunderstandings become more likely, which might result in projects going off track or not meeting expectations. In order for teams to bond in a remote setting, they must analyze interactions through a lens of openness, putting in extra effort purposely so that each word spoken carries just as much significance as it would if the speaker were present. Cultural variations. Cultural differences can complicate offshore development projects. Differences in communication methods, attitudes toward work, and ways of solving problems may cause subtle miscommunications or delays. To put it another way, what one culture may take for granted is what another might regard as a matter requiring explanations. Despite this diversity being enriching in its own right, it calls for greater consciousness and responsiveness to guarantee unity of purpose among team members situated at offshore development centers and business stakeholders on the administrative side. Security risks. Some risks are inherent when engaging in offshore software development. These risks are mostly related to data security and protection of intellectual property. The process of transferring sensitive data from one country to another may create vulnerabilities, which should be handled cautiously. Even if you lay down stringent security protocols and service agreements, you may still experience complications due to differing regulatory frameworks in your country and the offshore site. To maintain your project's confidentiality and integrity, you must take security proactively, covering all possible loopholes through suitable measures. When is it best to hire offshore dedicated teams? There are certain instances in project development where employing an offshore dedicated team might be more advisable than others. When working on intricate, long-term projects, complex projects with multiple phases often have requirements that constantly change as development progresses. Managing these types of initiatives with an offshore team allows you the flexibility to adapt swiftly when these needs arise. In the early startup stages, In the early stages of a startup, when you're still building prototypes and minimum viable products, financial and personnel resources are often few and far between. Hiring dedicated offshore staff during this period helps to minimize spending so that the production budget can be directed to other critical areas like marketing and customer acquisition. If you own a smaller or mid-sized business, building an in-house tech team can be a great ask if you own or manage a growing business, especially one that isn't typically focused on IT initiatives. The offshore development approach proves very useful here as it allows you to hire tech experts who possess the necessary skills for your project development without you having to invest heavily. When looking for inexpensive talent, for companies in high labor countries with astronomical wage demands, hiring dedicated developers from foreign territories can be a prudent alternative. With these teams, you can still get high-quality digital products without having to burn a hole in your pocket. When exploring new product ideas, when looking to try new ideas for a product or put it through preliminary validation steps, having an offshore team can help you to quickly experiment and iterate. This can also assist in building faster proof of concepts while limiting the investment you put in. When boosting in-house teams, suppose your in-house team is overworked because of increasing tasks or an extremely demanding assignment. In that case, you can hire offshore development teams to help out with extra personnel needed to meet deadlines and keep productivity levels up without committing to them for the long term. When specialized experts are lacking. Whenever a particular project needs a set of skills that are rare locally or expensive to hire, offshore development centers can be of great help by providing the missing personnel you need to achieve success in your software development ambitions. When working on side IT projects, if there are some other IT side projects that matter but they are not main operations for your organization, engaging an offshore dedicated team is most appropriate. They can handle these added responsibilities without diverting attention of core staff members from their duties. When you have seasonal workload fluctuations, the adaptability of an offshore dedicated development team can be of great benefit if you are in a business like retail, e-commerce, or entertainment, where customer demands change frequently due to seasonal variations. These teams enable you to temporarily expand your IT staff without having to make long-term employment promises. When you need scalable development, as your business expands and grows, so do your IT system requirements. To scale your infrastructure and personnel effortlessly, you can utilize offshore dedicated developers to keep your systems in pace with business growth even with increased business activities. When speeding up time to market, when urgency is required on an ongoing project and you need to get your product to market ahead quickly, offshore teams can expedite the development process. Their ability to work around the clock and quickly ramp up resources can go a long way in ensuring you are one step ahead of the competition. Where to find offshore development teams? There are several practical channels for sourcing offshore talent. Freelance portals like Toptail, Fiverr, or Upwork can connect you with agencies and individual freelancers globally who specialize in software development. You get a chance to go through their past projects and communicate directly with developers using the website's interface. Recommendations from friends, colleagues, business associates, or industry acquaintances are among the best sources of advice when looking for a good offshore development team. Their references usually come with personal experiences about the reliability and skillfulness of the team. LinkedIn and other social media channels like Reddit are incredible resources for people who need dedicated offshore teams. You can identify potential partners by looking up certain skills or companies and then go on to examine their professional histories. Online search directories are another route. By searching on Google or using specialized directories like Clutch, you can find a number of reputable companies that offer offshore development services. These firms usually have extensive profiles which include project case studies and testimonials from clients. Networking events, conferences, meetups, and hackathons provide opportunities that may lead to meeting with offshore development agencies or teams. Industry-specific forums and communities related to software development, such as Stack Overflow or GitHub, are also worth exploring. It is possible to interact directly with developers on these sites while also examining their expertise and contributions. Locations to find an offshore development team. Your decision on where to hire an offshore dedicated software development team may depend on time zone compatibility, cultural alignment, cost efficiency, and availability of specialized skills. It is, however, worth noting that each region has its own peculiarities that can affect the success of your project. Europe, particularly Eastern Europe, is emerging as a top destination for offshore development due to its balance of technical expertise, cultural alignment with Western companies, and moderate cost advantages compared to Western Europe and the US. Countries like Poland and Ukraine have become popular choices because they offer high-quality developers with strong communication skills and minimal time zone differences, especially for businesses based in the EU or US. While rates in this region have been rising due to increased demand, the overall stability, skilled workforce, and alignment with Western business practices make Europe a highly attractive option for many companies looking for a well-rounded offshore development solution. Asian countries such as India, Vietnam, and the Philippines are known for their vast talent pools and cost-effective development services. These regions offer significant savings and a wide range of technical skills. However, cultural differences and the considerable time zone gaps can pose challenges for projects that require close coordination and frequent communication. Although Asia remains a popular option for organizations prioritizing cost efficiency, these challenges may make it less appealing for companies seeking a smoother collaboration experience. As a result, it may not be the ideal choice for businesses that prioritize cultural alignment and real-time interaction. For American companies, South America is another desirable destination to hire offshore dedicated software development teams due to its affordability and cultural compatibility. Argentina, Brazil, and Colombia are among the top countries here that strike this balance well. They have a large number of skilled developers because of their fast-growing tech communities, and the time difference between these regions is minimal, making it easier to collaborate in real time. However, business could be affected sometimes by political or economic instabilities witnessed in some parts of this continent. Even with these concerns, South America still offers good conditions around time zones, especially when considered alongside cultural similarities found between North and South regions, making offshore development increasingly popular from year to year. How to hire offshore developers. Hiring a dedicated offshore team might be considered a shrewd business move. However, it is a process that you must conduct with extreme care and caution if you want to end up with a professional group who will contribute toward the success of your company by meeting all its set goals. Here is a comprehensive guideline you can follow to help you through this hiring process. First, determine your business needs. Before you hire offshore dedicated developers, you should have a clear picture of what you want to achieve and how it propels your business. You have to understand project specifics such as the technical skills required, scope of work, and timeline for completion. This will enable you to identify the right team among potential candidates for dedicated offshore development. Second, define the project scope. This is where you outline all the deliverables and milestones that an offshore dedicated development team must meet. A well-defined project scope gives you a framework by which to measure the progress and success of your project moving forward. It also helps you better explain your project's objectives and expectations to dedicated offshore developers, so you can avoid any future misunderstandings. Third, research potential offshore teams. Look for a dedicated development team that best matches the technical requirements of your project and has previously worked within your industry before. The options available may come from referrals, online directories, or job sites. Still, it is always good to look out for portfolios or case studies that can match your requirements as close as possible. Fourth, evaluate technical skills. Take note of the selected team members' technical expertise before you dive into their profiles. Look to see what they have previously completed, what their preferred working technologies are, and if they will have the skills to manage the specific technical requirements of your project. Moreover, it is a best practice right before you hire dedicated offshore developers to conduct technical assessments or coding tests to ensure they have the required skills to produce your software. Fifth, assess their level of communication. In any offshore development endeavor, effective communication is crucial. To this end, evaluate the communication abilities of your remote team during selection. Such evaluation should comprise their aptness in understanding and expressing project concerns and how well they respond when communicating. Strong communicative prowess aids in eliminating barriers caused by distance and cultural disparities, fostering an amicable working environment where everything runs smoothly. Sixth, conduct interviews. Before you hire dedicated development teams, conducting interviews with offshore developers who have been shortlisted is crucial. These interviews help you assess if the team members' technical skills match your company's culture and project needs. Use these interviews as an opportunity to inquire about their experience and problem-solving abilities on similar projects. Seventh, discuss terms and conditions. After selecting a team that meets the necessary qualifications, the next step involves discussing partnership terms and conditions. This entails setting up project timelines, payment structures, and intellectual property rights, among other contractual obligations you may have. You should address every possible concern at this point to prevent miscommunication in the future. Ensure both parties are satisfied with these agreements before proceeding further for seamless collaboration. Eighth, sign the contract. At this juncture, everything you need is already in place. All that is left is for you to put pen to paper on the dotted line. Before you do, however, double-check the contract, perhaps with legal help, to ensure the service level agreement contains all the terms and conditions talked about. Before you sign the SLA, you might want to consider adding a non-disclosure agreement if your project is of a sensitive nature. Ninth, onboard the offshore team. Onboarding is the final step in any outsourcing process to hire dedicated teams, offshore or otherwise. Here is where you introduce the team to your team leads and integrate them into your preferred project management and communication tools. When done correctly, onboarding eases the transition phase for external teams and consequently speeds up the pace of development. This is because it helps them better understand your business and its workflows so they can effectively contribute from day one. Closing takeaway. Recruiting an offshore dedicated development team from overseas has various advantages, such as worldwide skill acquisition, lower cost, and faster completion of projects. To establish a good working relationship with the developers you hire, you must identify your business's requirements and determine the project's extent well before you begin scouting. Facilitating open lines of communication and comprehensive orientation programs will ensure that your goals are met as and when due. If adopted correctly, this approach could propel your enterprise towards success through strategic assets that deliver high-quality results. If you'd like to learn more about software development, AI, cloud data engineering, and digital transformation, visit us at softeller.com.